Hey guys, my name is DocJade and welcome to episode 5 of the Factorio series where we try to hit 1 million green circuits per hour. In the last episode, we did a bunch of random crap and built an artillery cannon. But today's episode is going to be 100% power focused. We are going to be building a nuclear power plant. First things first, I'm going to need a lot of different materials for construction, because I'm going to be making 4 nuclear reactors. But why 4 nuclear reactors? Well, if we put 4 of them next to each other, each time a nuclear reactor is sitting next to another one, you get a 40 megawatt bonus. So by having 4 of them in a 2x2 square, each reactor actually makes 120 megawatts instead of 40 megawatts each. So instead of getting 160 megawatts, you end up getting 480 megawatts. That's 12 reactors worth of performance for the cost of 4. Anyway, now that we've gathered all the materials we need, we can start crafting them. I would craft them by hand, but I don't feel like holding thousands of resources. I'm going to clear out this little area so we can start designing our nuclear reactor. It's not going to be placed here, we're going to end up tearing up the blueprint and putting it somewhere else. Next up, we're going to need to craft 48 heat exchangers. The heat exchangers take the heat produced by the nuclear power plants and then use it to turn water into steam. Feeling a bit lazy here, so I'm going to use a requester chest for the pipes. But I'm still going to have to go manually pick up all the steel and copper plates. There we go, there's the heat exchangers. Next up, we're going to need 84 steam turbines. I'm feeling even more lazy now, so I'm going to use requester chests for all the ingredients. There we go, steam turbine production's done. Now we just have to wait for the bots to deliver all the ingredients. Also, the heat exchanger's crafting speed is being crippled by not being able to insert enough copper plates quickly enough, so we're going to add a second chest. And now it's time for the most important nuclear research. Covarex? I don't know. Covarex enrichment process. Next up, we're going to start mining this uranium ore patch. Now before, I used to manually paste the blueprint down one by one, but I got a comment from Jackson here informing me that I can turn on relative snapping to grid so I can click and drag them. Thanks, Jackson. It's plugged in now, but you actually can't mine uranium without sulfuric acid, so we're going to run a pipeline for that real quick. There we go. Now the miners will slowly fill up from right to left with sulfuric acid and we'll get some uranium going. Purple Science is holding up our research because we're not making any due to lack of steel, so I'll just hand feed it some real quick. Next up on our list of things to make is centrifuges. They're expensive, so I'm going to have to go grab all the materials for them real quick. I'm going to craft 5 of them real quick. Why 5 of them? I don't know. Felt like a good number. We're currently waiting on that Covarex enrichment process research to finish, so we're going to try to save up some uranium-238 before it's done researching. We want to set up these centrifuges as soon as possible because creating uranium-235 takes quite a while. Every time you try to craft, you actually have a 0.7% chance of actually getting the uranium-235. Most of the time, so the other 99.3%, you get a uranium-238, which isn't what we want. So we're going to beacon the heck out of the centrifuge to make it craft as quickly as possible. I'll set up the other centrifuges for when we have Covarex enrichment. And would you look at that, we've got our first U-235. We only need about 40 more, and then we can just infinitely produce it with Covarex enrichment. But we're still making it too slowly. I'm adding more beacons. We're actually not consuming it quickly enough to have to take 2 red belts, so I'm just going to turn it into 1 belt. Still not quite fast enough for my liking, so I'm going to steal some speed modules off this belt, and we can build some speed module 2s and 3s. I realized I didn't want to hand feed this thing, so I'm going to put a requester chest in here. Also, I forgot about designing the nuclear power plant. Our heat exchangers are done, and some of our steam turbines. But I thought the stack size was 100, not 10, so I'm going to have to change the limit here. Also, we can upgrade some of our beacons with level 2 modules now. Not sure why I'm doing it manually instead of control clicking it, but whatever, looks cool. I got a little bit bored, so I'm going to take out some of these biter nests with artillery. Anyway, I realized a flaw in my centrifuge design, so I'm going to rebuild it. There we go. Now we have a new, smarter design. We're not making level 2 speed modules quickly enough to feed the level 3 assembler, so I'll add a second one. Slowly but surely, I keep adding speed modules to the centrifuge. Also, most of our steam turbines are done now, so I'm going to start working on that design again. If you're a Factorio veteran or you've built yourself a couple good nuclear reactor designs, you might want to look away because this design process is awful and the final result is just looks terrible. But it has the correct ratio, so that's all I really care about. Oh, and I almost forgot to set up heat pipe production, so I'll do that really quick. And there we go, our final awful nuclear design. I should have just used a blueprint, man. Whatever, man. Anyway, we're going to cut this and we're going to go put it over next to where we have easy access to water. So I'm just going to stick it right next to the labs. Our centrifuge is fast, but still not fast enough, so I'm going to tear it down and stick the other 4 next to it so we can crank out even more 235. All of these upgrades should massively speed up our uranium-235 production. Sometimes I leave notes for myself when I'm editing so I can cut quicker. Like here I'm writing myself an AFK sign. Anyway, I'm done peeing or whatever I was doing, so back to work. Gonna hook up the water to the nuclear power plant real quick so we can turn it on as soon as we have those uranium fuel cells. I'm gonna add some outputs for the reactors real quick so they can spit out the used cells into some active provider chests. With our new and improved centrifuge, we're not getting enough uranium ore anymore, so we're going to have to speed up these miners with some speed modules. There we go. My rule of thumb is you don't have enough production until the belt starts backing up, so we're good now. Had an idea. What if we put even more beacons down? I know, genius, right? Man, those centrifuges sure do work fast now, almost as fast as a deputy U.S. Marshal would shoot your dog. Purple science production is still critically low on steel plates, so I'm going to upgrade this iron belt real quick so we can throw in a steel smelter over here. And we'll pipe that straight back into the purple science. Hopefully that'll help with our steel plate issue a little bit, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to feed it enough iron plates anyways. Next up, we're going to add an exit to our little uranium carousel. We're going to use some circuit logic here to make sure we only output onto that belt when we have enough of the uranium-235 going around the middle. Once it starts getting output to that belt, we're going to use this assembler to turn it into uranium fuel rods. But we're not going to have any uranium for it for a while, so it's just going to sit here for a little bit. I'm going to build me a little AFK spot next to these centrifuges because it's going to take me a while to get enough uranium-235. I went AFK for a little bit only to realize we didn't have any uranium ore going into the centrifuges, so I had to go fix that really quick. Looks like we're just missing the sulfuric acid. And you're not going to believe who's the culprit again. Petroleum. Whatever. I'll just throw some speed module 3s into the oil refineries. That should help. I'll also build a couple more refineries just in case. I'll also place down a second chemical plant to turn the heavy oil into light oil. New problem. Oil train isn't getting loaded quickly enough, so I'm going to add some tanks here to hopefully help speed that up. Luckily, there's another oil field to our south that we can take advantage of here in a minute. But Covarex enrichment is done. Anyway, I'll start setting up this lower oil field so we can load that train quicker. Now we can hook up that second oil patch into this pipeline and hopefully that train gets loaded a bit quicker now. All that work seems to have solved our petroleum problem, which means we have sulfur again. Now we just get to sit back, relax, and indulge in the time-honored Factorio tradition of standing around and doing nothing while we wait for production to speed up. I think we've almost got enough uranium-235 to start kickstarting Covarex enrichment. So I'm going to tear down one of these centrifuges and turn it into a Covarex enrichment centrifuge instead. The way Covarex enrichment works is it takes in 40 uranium-235 and 5 uranium-238 to make 41 uranium-235 and return 2 uranium-238. Quite the mouthful. Anyway, we've only got 20 out of the 40 we need, so we need to AFK a little bit longer. And would you look at that, it's starting to run. See, it's taken the uranium-235 off the belt, inserting it into itself, and just creating more out of nothing. It's awesome. So now I'm going to switch yet another centrifuge over to doing that instead of creating it from the ore. And after a bit more AFKing, now both of them are running, so we can add a third centrifuge. I think you're starting to see the pattern here, but this is the last time it's going to happen, so now all three are running and we're going to add the fourth centrifuge. After a bit more AFKing, we finally have enough U-235 to start turning into uranium fuel cells. Since the belt isn't fully saturated yet, it's not going to get enough U-238, so I'll just hand feed it some real quick. And there we go, nuclear fuel rods. Now the robots will take it over to the nuclear power plant and it'll start right up. The nuclear reactors take a little bit of time to warm up after you put the first couple fuel cells in them, so I'll skip ahead a little bit here. And there we go, now the boilers are starting to heat up. We're not going to be able to see the full output of the plant because satisfaction is currently at 100%, but we can see what it looks like in relationship to the steam engines. And as more of our boilers warm up, we quickly surpass steam engine production. Now we should have tons of power. Hopefully we won't have to touch power production for a very long time. Speaking of very long times, you know what's a very long time? A week. Speaking of next week, we're going to start working on laser turrets. So until then, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until next time, I'm DocJade. Bye-bye.